Berak, oh, okay, it's your first session, and I'm right about you. And okay, Samahat, if you can hear me, will you tell me if we can get started or we should still wait for more people? We are 19 now.
If you are ready, I think we can start.
We can start, definitely. Yeah, let's get
Yeah,
started.
okay.
So, those who were with us on Tuesday, they remember that we talked about the major theoretical framework of using technology in education and how technology can help us not only enhance the activities but also elevate them by not just replacing but by amplifying and transforming, which we're going to look at very, very quickly today. The reason I have used this photo on my first slide is because, as you can see, this lady, this girl, and both of them look very excited and engaged in whatever they are doing. I'm not pretty sure they are students or they're teachers or their colleagues or what. What really captures my attention that both of them are excited in what they are doing, and most probably most of us really hope that we have such students attending our courses to attend to the online class with maximum excitement and attention. But what happens in reality is not always uh, like this, but rather like this. This is what we sometimes, not always, have in our online classes, even in our face-to-face classes. The students boredom, disengagement can be one of the major problems. Because on Tuesday we talked about how you should kind of manipulate technology in the best practice of teaching online. Today, we are going to look at something which is a bit beyond that. So, for the teachers to be able to manipulate technology, it's not going to be the end of the story. We have something more, which is about the students. Are the students engaged and motivated? Because regardless of how much we try, if the students do not listen, they do not attend, they do not participate, I think a lot of our efforts and energy will go in vain and will be wasted. In today's presentation, I'm going to look at, we're going to have a very quick look at the theories that I presented on Tuesday, maybe for about 5 minutes. The major part of today's session will be about the practical suggestions which have worked in my own classes regarding motivating the learners. As you are already familiar with this poll, which I have created from Poll Everywhere, could I humbly ask you to go to this website once again? We have two questions for today. And I'd like to know your response to these questions, which are so important. They can determine the flow of our session and even the direction of our session today. So just like you visited this website, you went to this website, you added my name followed by 518. But for those who are new with us today, those 4 or 5 people, um, all the instructions appear on the slide, or they can simply scan the QR code and wait for the questions to appear. Okay, let's go to the first question. Overall, my students' online engagement rate is around, okay, 75%. We have more teachers with 50%, 30%. We don't yet have anyone with 100%, which is obvious because if we had anyone with 100% students engagement, they wouldn't really be here with us today, because 100% engagement means that you don't have any problems in engaging your students. But 75%, I wish, Samahat, I wish that those with 75% of student engagement could volunteer in your school, in your university, to talk to their colleagues about in what ways they have been able to achieve this high rate of student engagement. Because 75% is really awesome, you know. It's not 100%, but it's still awesome. 50% is all right, 30% is low. And we have four options. I'm not sure if I'd put anything below 30%. Maybe some people have voted even below 30%. But anyhow, it's not that disappointing because 50% is the maximum. Let's look at the second question. Students' willingness, interactive lessons. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, no one is going for A and B, teaching methods and use of technology. You are not going for them. It's all right. It's okay. Students' willingness. So, most participants voted for students' willingness, which raises a question, a problem, because this is out, sometimes it's out of our control. Because obviously, us teachers, there's nothing we can do about things which are out of our control. If the students are not willing to do something, no matter how much we try, sometimes we can't really get it done. So this is your choice, and because your students are tertiary level students, university students, this willingness has to be discussed um, in details maybe later. Um, Actually, National Geographic Learning conducted a survey about the biggest barriers in online teaching, and students' engagement gained the first vote, the highest. More than 50% of teachers interviewed, it means more than 3,000 teachers. They believe that students' motivation and engagement is the biggest problem, followed by interactive lessons that you chose some seconds ago. The third one was students without access to technology, which may not be the case of your students. The fourth one is assessing learners. But anyhow, the first one, the biggest problem in online teaching, as the research shows, is motivating and engaging learners, which could be true in your case. If you remember, on Tuesday, I introduced PICRAT model. The PIC model stood for passive, interactive, or creative mode of learners, students, not teachers. And then we looked at the RAT model, which was replacing, amplifying, or transforming. And if you remember, we decided that replacing by itself cannot really address the main issues in online teaching, and we need to introduce some amplifying or transforming activities. I showed you this box, which was a combination of students' relation to technology and teachers' manipulation of technology, and together we decided that CT is the most idealistic um, situation where you are actually introducing transformed activities or transformative activities, and the students are active and creative, which is not very often because, like we said, no matter how much you try, if the students are not really creative, you cannot really get there. Today, I'm going to share some tips with you regarding how you can instill this culture of participation and engagement in your students. Okay, so yeah, this much is about what we studied on Tuesday. And if you remember, I said that it's a new paradigm. There's a shift of responsibility. There's a shift of authority. We cannot use the same material. Okay, the first one um, is actually how you are using technology. Um, I think it's not really beyond expectation to assume that maybe about 20-30% of teachers are kind of technophobic. They have sort of phobia of technology. They don't really like to use technology, but now they have to. Okay? It's a situation where you cannot say, I don't like technology. You have to. And when you have to, you need to get your hands dirty with it and try to use technology to the best of its possibility. So, classroom presentation tool and the other platforms that you use, I'm not sure what platform you use at Namik Kemal University, but the more you are familiar with the platform and the more you are able to use different features of technology, that will help you engage your students. But depending on the age of your students, depending on the cultural background of your students, this might work in some contexts and this may not work in other contexts. The one I'm showing you here is a window shading function of classroom presentation tool, for example, which works perfectly well with teenagers. I'm afraid with tertiary level students, this may not really be the best one, but there are other functions and other features on platforms that you can use with tertiary level students, like annotation. In face-to-face classes, annotation, I remember, was one indicator of how much students actually put their best efforts and how much they paid attention to different parts of the books when they were studying. So in face-to-face classes, I think you kind of agree with me. When you check the students' books and you see that there's some amount of annotation, like you can see on this slide, you kind of think that, okay, the students has done something, they have studied something, they have annotated, so it means that they've been engaged. This annotation is also possible in online technology. For example, in Zoom, if I enable your annotating feature, you can start annotating on this slide, you know. Let me see if we can do it now. Um, allow participants to annotate. Could you write your names on this slide for me very quickly? Because I enabled your annotating function and feature. So normally you should be able to write on this one, but yeah, let me see if anyone can. You can draw a line or you can write your name, something, you know. And if you can see, uh, annotation starts here. So this is my name, for example. Okay, and it's not the best handwriting. Okay, all right. Can anyone write their names on this slide for me? Samahat, Is it something you will volunteer to do as the coordinator of the session? Hello? Guys, can you hear me? Does annotation work for you? Okay, I can't do, you can't? Um, let me see. Annotate. I think I enabled, okay, all right. No, all right. We're not going to waste the time of today's webinar, so let's skip. The thing is, um, annotation can help engage your students, you know. When you have a like classroom presentation tool, depending on the platform you're using, you let your students annotate on the slide. This can always help with engaging the students. Next one, um, this one. Okay. As you can see, a very crucial uh, strategy in order to engage your students is the second one I'm sharing with you, which is about timely two-way feedback. Um, so this feedback actually does magic, either in face-to-face or online classes. It really does magic, and please make sure that in online classes you're using, um, you know, your office hours. If you have any office hours, you give your students office hours to come and see you. And the one that you can see on my slides now is an example of my office hours with my students. So what I do, I schedule my office hours on doodle.com, doodle.com. And then I share the link with my students. They jump on doodle.com and they book the best time slot for themselves. And I think as far as university students are concerned, I think they should be able to do it. When you meet your students one-on-one, then you can tell them about your expectations. But I have a piece of advice for you. First, you hear from them. First, you ask them, could you tell me what you think of the online class? Are you enjoying the online class? Are you learning? Do you have any problems? Do you have any problems regarding my way of um, teaching online? And be open to the students' criticism. So one fundamental principle I have here is that if you want your students to pay attention to you, you should pay attention to them. So you expect attention, you show attention by two-way feedback. Okay? Depending on the policies of Namik Kemal University, you might have office hours which are even paid. I'm not sure about it. But, you know, even if it's not paid, I think 10 minutes for one-on-one meetings with your students can really do magic. Next one is about setting rules. I think, like I said on Tuesday, a lot of us were thrusted to this online teaching without prior knowledge and expertise. And some of us are a little bit lost and confused. So there were things that we used to do in our face-to-face classes we have failed to do in online. But let's remember how much classroom management rules were important in face-to-face classes. And I think that we can carry the same culture. Write classroom rules together with your students, not just you. Remember, on Tuesday, one thing I introduced to you was that with online teaching, there are some changes, and one of them is the shift of authority. You don't have the same authority as you did. It's a new paradigm. There's a shift of responsibility. So create a Google Doc. This is my suggestion. Create a Google Doc, share it with your students, get them to write down their own ideas about classroom rules. So first you give them editing function. After a few days, when you think that the list is complete, you change the editing role to viewing role only, so that no one can come and make a mess with the rules that you have already created. Setting rules can do magic, and these rules can be about punctuality, handing in assignments, even dress code, you know, because it's online, some students are taking it easy and they are not so much actually careful about their clothing. They are a bit casual and informal, which can add to the students' laziness and disengagement, because the whole environment has changed to a more um, comfortable one, which has its advantages, but at the same time may kind of negatively contribute to lack of participation. So be a bit authoritative and adamant with rules. But remember, write down the rules together with your students. This one is about a sense of belonging. Um, so, online education, with all its advantages and positive points, has brought segregation, separation, isolation. So students used to come to classrooms together, they used to sit together, they used to shake hands, you know. Nowadays, it's different. So what might have been missing is that sense of belonging and sense of community. Before, there was more sense of belonging and more sense of community. If you can find your own ways of creating this sense of belonging and community, I'm sure that your students will show more participation. Look at this image and write in the chat box whatever that crosses your mind about this picture. What can you see in this picture? Please type in the chat box. Suzanne says unity. Red t-shirts. Narin says red t-shirts. Wearing the same color. Engagement. Same color t-shirt. Similarity. Enthusiasm. Perfect. Yeah, this is just an example. We don't know. Maybe these people belong to a group. Maybe they belong to a community celebrating something. Yeah, yeah. So again, casting doubt, I am casting doubt on the feasibility of asking your university students to wear uniforms or unified color t-shirts. But I don't know, maybe you can give it a try. Say you have classes on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. You can call it like white Mondays. On Mondays, I'm expecting more white clothing. I don't know. Tuesday, I'm expecting more like brownish, greenish, depending on the age of the students and age and cultural background and also gender. Gender also plays an important role in this one. Um, I'm not sure how much you agree with me, and you will kindly write in the chat box if you agree. You write agree. If you disagree, write disagree. Girls show more online participation and engagement. Do you agree with me? If you agree, write yes. Definitely, definitely. Yeah. In other words, girls are more conformist, you know, if you like. Boys are less of a conformist. And in my own webinars in the last few months, I have seen more contribution and engagement from the female participants of my webinars than the male participants. Let's look at the people who participated. Buket, Pinar, Narin, Suzanne. You know, even today, uh, when we have teachers attending a webinar, I think, of course, the number is also, you know, uh, important. It matters, but yeah, there's usually more contribution coming from girls. And something has written, unfortunately, while having online class, our students do not use cameras. Pinar says that. Our students mostly refuse to turn on their microphones, let alone their cameras. Fatih says that. You remember when we talked about classroom rules? If you tell them that this is part of the classroom rule, that you need to, at least for part of the class time, you need to turn on your cameras and microphones, because each session you are getting some points towards the final overall score of this course, then I don't think they will mess with it. This one, as you can see, it's a very strong image, really strong. Uh, can I expect you to write down? It slows down the system. It does. Yeah. Yeah. That's one reason. Could you write down the first word that crosses your mind when you see this picture? Someone wrote creepy. Hakan wrote creepy. You guys, how about the rest of the participants? Could you write down something about this image? What is this image trying to tell us? Could you write down? Cooperation, interaction, agreement, agreement. Having something in common. Cooperation, interaction, contract. Okay. It shows total participation with the students. Interaction. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. But there's something added to what you all said. You know, the other arm, one arm is the student or the one who's sitting opposite the laptop, but the other one is coming from inside the laptop, which is kind of about personalizing and humanizing. You know, again, with all the advantages, all the strengths, one thing which is missing in online teaching is that human touch, and it's important. You know, for some people it's important because, you know, we have different learner types. We have various types of learning styles, and some of them are really sensitive and they like it. I mean, they like that human touch. They like that humanized part of online teaching and learning. So what I sometimes do with my students, depending on their age, I use my personal photos and videos. And I get my students to do the same. I get them to share their photos and videos with the other students with the class. And like it or not, we are not going to be that much bound to the course books with online teaching. So one major difference between face-to-face and online teaching is in face-to-face teaching, there was more of sticking to the course book. But here in online teaching, it's like source book, not the course book anymore. And there's more of creativity. There's more of transformative pedagogy. Like the ones I'm sharing with you now, these are my personal photos. One, I'm standing next to a lady, and the other photo, I'm hosting a webinar. Um Actually, you might know some of those people. Do you know any people in the picture to the right who are kind of related to our profession of ELT, English language teaching? If you can identify anyone, could you write their names in the chat box for me? The picture to the right. Noam Chomsky, yes, yes, Noam Chomsky is the one on top right hand corner. Stephen Krashen, yeah, Stephen Krashen is the one to the left bottom corner of the photo. Yeah, Noam Chomsky, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, my friends. I hosted a webinar about 7 or 8 months ago, which I called the webinar of the century. I invited Professor Chomsky and Krashen together, and both of them attended the webinar, which was, um, you know, really one of the rarest events in the history of ELT, because towards the end of the webinar, Professor Krashen said he waited 50 years to have an event together with Chomsky, and it was a great honor for me. Look, when I share it with my students, I kind of personalize. I can get my students to use different forms of language with my personal photos. With the first photo, I mean, me standing next to a lady, usually I work with modals with my students. I say use can, may, should, must, and tell me who do you think that lady is. And they start with she must, she might be, she could be, she can be, your sister, your mother, I don't know, your colleague. And this is how personal photos and videos can elicit more language from the students. They can feel it's more engaging for them. Okay, let's move to the next one. Team projects are um, absolutely instrumental in engaging students. So once again, I wish I knew some Turkish that I could say this one in Turkish, because sometimes you think that English does not really do it. English is not enough to show your passion. I know Azeri, but I'm not a fluent speaker of Turkish. That's why I'll keep speaking English. Team project, and what I wanted to tell you in Turkish was, which I'm saying in English anyway, is that you so your students are not as much active as before, and this is not necessarily a problem. Maybe it's an opportunity. Okay, maybe it means that you should give your students projects to go and work on and come and present to the class, because in face-to-face classroom your students came to the class, they sat there, you observed them, and then you took the attendance and everything. But with online teaching, one of your complaints is that they are turning off their cameras, they are turning off their microphones. So one major question I have is that, do you think this is necessarily something negative? Collaborative work increases learners' performance, Curai. Definitely, definitely. So if you introduce team projects, um, like this one I have here, which I'm not going to play, this is a team project we gave to Iranian students. That's where I am from. We told them, mm, create a video, a 5-minute video about what does the world think about Iran. You can introduce similar projects to your students and tell them to go and make a video about what does the world think about Turkey. And I'm sure that your students will love it. Okay, collaboration and many other things. Another thing which, depending on the age of students, depending on where your students come from, the demographics of that context might vary, but research is showing that some students cannot catch up because of technical support, because of lack of technical support. So if you can provide technical support, not you as their English teacher, but you get the right support for them. Sometimes some students are shy to confess that they are behind the other students for technical problems. So when you have one-on-one meetings with your students, this is one question you can ask them. Tell them, What do you think? Do you think that you need some technical support or no? Another one, in order to uh, actually confidently use technology and consequently being able to prepare interactive lessons and even create fun games and use technology in the best way to engage your learners is your knowledge of ICT. How much you are confident in using technology. And I'm sure that your school, Namik Kemal University, has had some webinars. They have created some events for you to hone your skill of technology because you are dealing with young learners. I mean, when I say young learners, it means that they're young. Most of them are younger than you. And the younger they are, the more digital native they are. And sometimes their knowledge of manipulating technology is more than that of yours, which can be the root of some problems. For some students, when they see that the teacher is not able to use technology confidently, they lose their trust. But look, this is a fact. The younger they are, the more techno savvy they are, and there is no reason why you should be ashamed. Just, I mean, even you can admit that, yeah, I need some lessons. Challenges, without any challenges, the students can switch off. Depending on what facilities you have, depending on uh, what websites and apps you are more confident with, you can create challenges for your students regardless of their age. Don't tell me that because you are teaching adults, tertiary level students, challenges don't work with them. They do, because I'm a teacher myself. About 2 years ago, I had some students around the age of 50, 40 to 50, 55. And guess what? Every session we played a game of Kahoot. And they were so excited about it. I still remember a lady of about 50 years of age jumping up because she was winning, you know. And you do not usually see these things in uh, normal, ordinary classes. So set challenges. You can use Kahoot, you know, and many, many other websites and games. The slide number 10, I can call this a slide as maybe um, the the most important one, the most significant message in terms of engaging your learners. You know, in face-to-face classes, I keep repeating this message over and over, but it's really important. In face-to-face classes, you had most of the authority and responsibility. Now we can see a shift of authority and responsibility, and your assessment methods, evaluation methods should change accordingly. You can't assess your students the same way and expect them to be active and engaged. You should kind of adapt your assessment system, evaluation system to the new setting. By one way is giving them contract learning. You know, it's a new concept. It's a new concept where you give them, when you give your students a contract, um, you give them the template and you get your students to write down why they are attending the course. They are attending the course because they need to improve their writing skills, speaking skills, and all the other skills and sub skills. And the class meets twice a week, and you expect them to be present, turn on their cameras and microphones, and participate as much as they can. They write down and they sign it, and you keep it as a contract. It, I should admit that this works better with younger students. However, we tried it at university. Some students showed some, disagreement or kind of frustration. They said, come on, we are university students. What are you doing? Are you getting us to sign a contract? But with some students, it really worked well, you know. Portfolio assessment, I'm sure that this sounds familiar to a lot of you. Um, so one-off assessment at the end of the term is not going to help you, but rather an assessment which you spread throughout the course, um, which is portfolio assessment, can kind of engage your learners in that you will tell them your participation at each session will be regarded as like a positive point or a bonus towards the overall score you're going to get. And I'm sure that then they will feel that there are some obligations, there are some uh, duties they have to fulfill, which I call them sessional scores, contract learning, as you can see. Another thing that I do with my students, I give them weekly tables to complete and bring to me, or send me, of course, in case of online teaching. They send me weekly um, study tables, something like this. So I tell them, you will write down how much you studied English, at what exact time you did it, what was the outcome, and if there are any comments or questions. So I collect it on a weekly basis. All right. So each week I collect this, and this kind of is considered part of the portfolio assessment. That's something. In other words, we should encourage them to become autonomous learners from Merva. Of course, Merva. This is the message I've been trying to communicate to you and many other people, that with online teaching comes more responsibility for the students, more authority, and definitely more autonomy, Merva. Thank you for that. Some maybe less, you know, effective one, not sure, depending on the age of the students. Physical exercise, you know, I myself sometimes feel I'm kind of tired and bored after speaking or, you know, teaching online. So after about 20 minutes or so, I just stop the flow of teaching and I tell them, it's time to exercise, and just turn on your cameras and show me that you are kind of stretching your arms, you're doing some physical exercises, which again, I should say, works better with younger learners. Number 12, I think number 10 and 12 are probably the most effective ones. Number 10 was evaluation. I mean, it's a different form of evaluation and assessment in which students have also an ownership of the whole assessment. They decide how the assessment is going to be like. And number 6 was about team project, if you remember. I said give them team projects. In the same line comes student presentation. Instead of you doing most of the talk, most of the teaching, you can just turn the class upside down and make it a flipped classroom, if you remember from Tuesday, and then get your students to study and present, which works for the overall score they're going to get for the course. So you are going to have more presentation from your students, and the more they present, of course, the more they participate. And this presentation doesn't have to be an individual presentation, group presentation where you put them in different groups and you get them to present. So very quickly going from the first one to the last one, I said that try to explore the platform you are using, all the functions and features. Give two-way timely feedback. Give them your office hours to come to meet you online. Number 3 was set rules, and when you are setting rules, do it together with your students. You can create a Google Doc for that. Number 4 was to try to cultivate a sense of belonging and community. And depending on your students, you can use different methods. Next one I introduced was try to personalize and humanize your teaching as much as possible. Use your personal videos and photos. Team projects was one of the most effective ones. Technical support is surely important. Your knowledge of ICT will play a role in engaging your students. Setting challenges is closely tied to students' excitement, therefore their participation. Your evaluation and assessment systems should change. You should give your students more authority, more voice. Next one was physical exercise, which I'm not sure if you're going to be able to do it in your online classes. And finally, you get your students to present in a flipped classroom format, if possible. My last slides, my last 2 slides will not require any talking from me. I will just put the slides there for you to see some very short tips and pieces of advice regarding online participation. If you have any questions, you can just type in the chat box that you have questions regarding one of these 6, 1 to 6. I'll give you 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Question. Success coach. Good one. Yeah, first time I hear it. Success coach. In face-to-face classes, you remember you had students who were ahead of the others. I think you have the same students in online classes. They are acting better in terms of participation, in terms of contribution, handing in assignments, following the class, etc. We call them success coach. You can create groups of 4 and 5 people and assign this success coach to one student who's acting more successfully than the others. Yeah, someone who's more knowledgeable, someone who's doing who is satisfying the teacher in terms of handing in the assignments, knowing the lessons, contributions, and everything. But there is something very sensitive here. At the same time, this might raise some students' jealousy. They might say that, oh, this student is the teacher's, I'm sorry to say this, but teacher's pet or the apple of teacher's eyes. One thing you can do to avoid this is create a poll and ask the students to vote for the best student regarding online participation and contributions. And more often than not, they vote for someone who really deserves to be the success coach. And then you give them some responsibilities to help the other students in a cascading manner. My last page before I say goodbye to you is a page just like the other one, the previous one. Look at it just like the previous one and tell me if you have questions. Question coming from number 10, micro learning. Thank you, Gurai. Yeah. Gurai, do you want to turn on your microphone and tell us about micro learning if you wish, or you're okay?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great. I studied microlearning on my master's thesis. It's about segmentation, we divide the lesson into smaller parts so that learners can acquire it easily.
Perfect. Perfect. Oh, this is great. Look, at Namek Kemal University, you have people who have expertise, so you are in good hands. I think if you have your circle of teachers, I don't see why you can't have a session run by Gurai about segmentation, because he did his thesis on segmentation, and it's one of the most effective ways of engaging learners. Thank you so much, Gurai. It was fabulous. And your contributions on Tuesday and also today are really appreciated. Um, definitely, definitely. And I'd be more than happy to be notified of that webinar if there is one in the future. And I'll be happily attending your webinar on segmentation, which is definitely one of the best ways of teaching. Okay. Okay, it brings us to the end of today's webinar, in which I tried to share with you some practical ways of trying to engage your students, not engaging your students, because no matter how much you try, sometimes your students are not engaged. They don't want to. And in English, if you've heard this proverb, they say, you can lead a horse to river, but you can't make it drink. You know, and all these things we are doing, we are trying to lead the horse to the river. But if the horse wants to drink or not, this is up to the horse. And regarding our students, they are tertiary level students, and they understand everything. They may want to attend your classes, or they may want to do other things, which might lead to another webinar we can have in the future about liberal education or democratic education, which might be the future of education anyway. There might be some way of paradigm of education in the future where there is no attendance. I mean, attendance is not important. Not that there is no attendance. Sorry, I should correct myself. Attendance is not important because as a teacher, you are delivering your lesson, and the students should normally be there or listen to you because they are the recipient of that knowledge from you, or you are facilitating their learning. If they don't want to attend, if they don't want to do it, then there's no way you can push it. Thank you, everyone. This brings us to the end of our session. It's 1 hour, and let me tell you, we are here at Kardesh Kitab Company in Ankara, the exclusive representative of National Geographic Learning. Write to us if you have any questions, comments, issues. You have my email address on this last slide. You can write to me. And I also shared this survey link with you in the chat box for you to kindly go to that Google Forms with 10 questions and help us actually improve our webinars. And thank you so much for attending, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evenings with your loved ones, with your families and everyone. You are writing some beautiful thing. A teacher trainer in a webinar said that students should have to Maslow before they can bloom. I think it's highly related to what you've covered in this session. Thank you. Merve, you are awesome. You are awesome. Wow. This Namik Kemal University is one of a kind. I think someday in the future I should come and see you in person. You guys are fantastic. Thank you, Gulay, Nermin, Buket, Guray, Pinar, Fatma, Hakan, Berak, Gizem, Suzanne. You are wonderful people, guys. I mean, you are some of the best audience I've ever had in my webinars. You are awesome. Nuria, Merve. Okay, awesome. Have a good time, everyone. Um, if online teaching is not as successful as you were thinking, you are not the only one. You know, a lot of teachers have these problems, and hopefully things will be better. Hopefully coronavirus will be controlled and we will go back to the normal classes, but even online teaching will be an option in the future, and hope things will be better. Have a good time everyone, and see you in person. Samahat, have a good time. Merve, Nuria, everyone, Gurai, see you guys. Take care of yourselves. You stay safe too, Fatima. You stay safe and healthy and happy and wealthy and wealthy. Gizem, see you, Gizem. You've got beautiful names, everyone. You've got beautiful names. Gizem, that's a beautiful name, Gizem. Take care, everyone. Bye. Close this one. Bye-bye.